Hey guys, so several of you have asked me about the primary cilium additional focus area, and you might be struggling with this mostly because of the number of scientific papers you have to read. And so what I want to do in this video is go over how do you actually read a scientific paper, or how do you pull the information that you need from a paper, and then I'm also going to give you a couple of tips that are specific to this additional focus area to help you succeed in the assessment. So I first want to define why this focus area is called primary cilium. It's called primary cilium mostly because we're talking about a primary cilium, but we're also talking about primary research articles. And so primary research articles are articles that contain the original data and conclusions from the researchers who actually conducted that study or the experiment. This is different from a review article, which kind of gives an overview of a particular topic by summarizing data and conclusions from many different studies. And so as you move through the playlist, you'll see that most of them are primary research articles. However, there are a couple, I believe one or two, that are review articles. So this slide's probably the most important slide and where I'm going to give you most of the specifics to the primary cilium additional focus area. So most papers are broken down into 5 general parts, and some of these parts may be longer or expanded upon. But I want to quickly go over these different parts. The first is that every paper is going to have an abstract, and an abstract is pretty much the summary of a paper. Here you're typically going to find the main questions of the article, you're going to find the key results, so the most important results from the experiment, and a very brief overview of the authors or scientists' conclusions. All of the primary research articles in this playlist, you guys need to read the abstract. Pretty much every assessment question is pulled directly from the abstract. And so whenever you're first presented with a scientific paper, you always read the abstract first. You're going to pull out a ton of information from there. The introduction contains all the background information, so what other studies have been done that led the scientists to this point. This will also serve as a pretty good part of the papers that'll help you understand a little bit more about some of the background of the primary cilium. Materials and methods goes over exactly that. You shouldn't focus on that too much in this focus area. The results, this will show the data from the experiments, ideas about how to improve the methods, and then how do you represent the data that they gained from the experiment. The materials and methods and results, you shouldn't spend a lot of time reading in this focus area. You're not going to be expected to be able to analyze that. And then the 5th section, the discussion and or conclusion. This is when the scientists are going to draw conclusions about their results. And so this can actually also be a pretty good recap of the paper when you are reading a scientific paper. So I quickly want to go over how do you read a scientific paper. What you need to do is, first of all, you just need to read and don't write yet. So the first time you read a scientific paper, don't start taking notes and highlighting and typing and all of those things. Just read. There are several studies to show that when you're writing and reading, you're actually not retaining most of what you read. That's especially true with these scientific articles. It took me 3-4 years to learn how to do this. So don't read or don't write, just read. And in this order, here's what I recommend. You read the abstract. Almost all of the assessment questions are going to come from this abstract. So what you need to do is go through each of those resources, and you need to read the abstract, read it once, don't write, read it again, and then start taking notes on what you're reading. The abstract is going to be very important in being successful in this focus area. Read the background information. There's going to be some really important ideas presented in this background information, and you don't necessarily need to read it line from line, but you should maybe skim it, and you're going to, again, read, don't write yet, so do that once, and then go back and reread that section and take some notes as you go. And then if you have time, or if you're really interested in the paper, then you go and read the discussion and or conclusion. And typically that's a good recap of everything that you've analyzed in the abstract and background info. And you don't really need to focus on the results and materials and methods. So for all of the primary research articles, follow these 4 steps in order. And if you are reading a review article or a website, what you should do is you should skim the website following this first rule. I'm not expecting you to read it word for word, but I would expect you to just read, absorb information, and then read it again, and then you take your notes. Hopefully this will help you guys be successful with this additional focus area, which is definitely pretty challenging.